When we look at a map, we usually just see lines and names. But this isn't just a map. It's more like a script. We're about to explore how a tiny little strip of land, its mountains, its plains, its valleys, didn't just witness history, it actively shaped it. We're going to see how the ground itself became a stage for massive empires, a testing ground for faith, and a theater for conflicts that are still echoing today. So let's dive right in.
So here's the big question we're tackling. We usually think of geography as just the background, the setting for the real story. But what if it's not? What if the landscape is actually one of the lead characters? What if a mountain range or a flat stretch of coast could literally force decisions that would change the entire course of human history? All right, to get this region, we have to start with its most basic identity. It was never really a powerhouse on its own. Instead, it was the critical and, often crushed piece of land between the ancient world's superpowers. I mean, just picture a land bridge connecting 3 entire continents. If you were an army marching from Egypt up to Mesopotamia, you had to cross right here. If you were a trade caravan, you had to pass through. And what comes with armies and traders? New ideas, new cultures, and new gods. It basically turned this land into a permanent pressure point. And what happens in a pressure cooker, right? Everything gets tested. This constant flood of foreign armies and outside cultures meant that local beliefs were never, ever safe. It's exactly why this place is so often called the ultimate testing ground of faith. Okay, so let's see how this actually played out on the ground. Our journey is going to start on the coast, on this flat, kind of unremarkable stretch of land called the Sharon Plain. It's right here that one of history's most ambitious builders, Herod the Great, decided he was going to bend geography to his own will. See, Herod had this massive geographical problem. His whole game was about connecting his kingdom to the immense power and glory of Rome. But for a sea-based empire like Rome, this coastline was a total disaster. It was poker straight, with 0 natural harbors to protect ships from the Mediterranean storms. So what do? Well, if nature won't give you a harbor, you build one yourself. Herod launched this unbelievable mega project, using brand new underwater cement technology to create a massive artificial port right out of the open sea. Then, he built a temple to Caesar and literally aimed it directly toward Rome. This wasn't just about building, it was a statement. He was physically importing Roman culture, piece by piece. The historian Josephus, who actually saw it, was just blown away. He wrote that it was larger than the Piraeus, the legendary ancient port of Athens. That gives you a sense of the jaw-dropping scale we're talking about. This was an act of pure will against nature. And the amazing thing is, we know this isn't just a story. In 1963, archaeologists digging around in Caesarea found this stone. It had been, just reused in a staircase later on, but the inscription on it was crystal clear. It mentioned Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor from the Bible. To this day, it is the only physical archaeological proof of his existence. Just incredible. But here's the great, almost unbelievable historical irony. Herod built this magnificent port to be a gateway for Roman culture and power to flood into his land. But within just a few decades, it became the main gateway out. It was the port from which apostles like Paul sailed to spread a new faith to the Roman world. A complete 180-degree reversal of its intended purpose. All right, from the coast, let's move inland. And as soon as you do, you smack right into a wall, the Mount Carmel range. Now, this isn't just one mountain. It's a 30-mile-long barrier that just slices the landscape in two. It forces anyone trying to pass through to make a choice. And that's the next great geographical puzzle. If you're a marching army or a caravan loaded with goods, you can't just go over it. It's too long, too rugged. So, how in the world do you get through it? Well, the answer is literally hidden in the geology of the mountain itself. The peaks are made of super hard limestone, but layered in between them is this soft chalk. Over time, the rain and wind erode the soft chalk way faster, carving out these natural passes. And those passes, especially the one at a place called Megiddo, became the most strategic, and you guessed it, the most thought-over pieces of real estate in the entire ancient world. Because Mount Carmel was such a clear physical barrier, it also became a kind of cultural and religious boundary. On one side, you had the faith of Israel, centered on Yahweh. On the other side, creeping down from ancient Phoenicia, was the worship of Baal, the powerful god of storms who people believed controlled the rain, and therefore their survival. So this geography sets the stage for an absolutely epic showdown. The prophet Elijah goes right up onto Mount Carmel, Baal's home turf, and challenges his prophets. And the timing makes it even crazier. He does this during a crippling 3-year drought. He's basically taking the fight to the god of rain on his own mountain at the exact moment that God has most clearly failed his followers. Okay, so once you get through one of those critical passes in Mount Carmel, the whole world opens up. You spill out into this vast, flat plain called the Jezreel Valley. And if Mount Carmel was the barrier, the Jezreel Valley, well, that was the stage. The valley is shaped just like an arrowhead, and honestly, it's the perfect image. The passes act like a funnel, aiming armies directly into the heart of the land. It makes conflict here almost unavoidable. I mean, the list of battles fought here is just mind-boggling. You've got Egyptian pharaohs, Canaanites with their chariots, Israelites, Philistines, and it just keeps going, right up to World War I when the British General Allenby won a major victory here and was literally nicknamed Lord of Armageddon. The ground here is just soaked in thousands of years of conflict. In fact, historians figure that over 200 distinct battles have been fought in this one relatively small valley. 200. It is, arguably, the single most contested battlefield on planet Earth. But this valley wasn't just for fighting. Check out this incredible parallel. On one slope of a small mountain here, a prophet from the Old Testament named Elijah raises a boy from the dead. Fast forward a few centuries, and on the other side of the exact same mountain, Jesus raises a widow's son from the dead. And what did the crowd say? A great prophet has appeared among us. They likely knew the ancient story that had happened just over the hill. The geography itself connects the two events. And here's the final piece that just brings it all home. The town of Nazareth, where Jesus grew up, sits on a ridge that overlooks this entire valley. This whole theater of prophets and kings and epic battles, this wasn't some story from a history book for him. It was, quite literally, his backyard. So let's just tie all of this together. As you travel from the coast over the mountain and into the valley, it becomes so clear that the land itself wasn't just a passive backdrop. It was an active force, a major character in the story. So you can really think of the land as having these 3 distinct roles. The Sharon Plain on the coast was the gateway, a blank slate for human ambition that saw its purpose completely flipped on its head. Mount Carmel was the barrier, a natural wall that forced huge strategic choices and sparked cultural clashes. And finally, the Jezreel Valley was the stage, the inevitable theater for some of history's most decisive battles. Each one of these features didn't just exist, it dictated the action. And all this brings us to one last really provocative thought. The name Armageddon actually comes from the Hebrew Har Megiddo, which means the mountain of Megiddo, that key pass overlooking this very valley. So if this specific geography has shaped so much of the past, what does it mean that for millions of people around the world, its most famous and definitive battle is one they believe is still yet to come?